You're still watching The Conversation on Lagos Television, and at this moment on the show, our conversation will be on the controversial tax reform bill, which is before the National Assembly. You will recall last week that the Northern Governors Forum did complain about the tax reform bill, saying that it's going to shortchange that part of the country. And of course, the National Economic Council equally met last week, which was chaired by the Vice President, where Governor Seyi Makinde addressed media at the end of the meeting, saying that there is need for further consultation before that bill is signed into law by Mr. President. What are the controversies surrounding this bill? What are the issues? And is it going to benefit the country at the end of the day? These are some of the issues we intend to look at with Mr. Gbenga Badejo, who is a chartered accountant and tax consultant on the program this morning. Good morning. It's a pleasure to have you.
Morning.
Thank you for being here.
All right. I think, first of all, you should take us through the nitty-gritty of this proposed tax reform bill in such a way that a layman who is watching us right now would understand.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. The issues are very simple, but they are critical. And when you have seemingly simple issues, but are critical to the citizenry, and one, you have to be very careful how the issues are addressed. Now, lack of complete understanding of what the issues are will lead to some controversies. Now, let's go back memory lane. When this administration came to power, a tax reform committee was empaneled. And this tax reform committee is filled up with eminently qualified Nigerians. There are objectives to streamline the taxes, harmonize them, make sure that the incidence of double taxation that is inimical to our well-being is curtailed, make sure that it's easy for citizens to comply with the tax laws, streamline wipe away all the bottlenecks, ensure that if you want to pay your taxes, you have direct access, then cut off all the bottlenecks that will not allow people to comply with the extant tax laws, review all the tax laws to make sure that none is punitive, because government has realized that in developing and developed countries, our tax GP ratio is one of the lowest. And how do you develop infrastructure? How do you address imbalances? How do you grow the economy? But it's beginning to look like the only thing this government wants to do is to tax Nigerians and subject them to hardships. As we speak today, the poverty level is so high. The poverty index is one of the highest in the world. And people are wondering that all these tax reforms we are doing, what does it immediately translate to?
True.
People can't see it. They can't see it. So this government has employed a gradualist approach to take us from where we are to where we ought to be. And this will not happen overnight. Any reform you bring concerning tax is viewed with suspicion. This suspicion would help ensure that the government looks critically at anything they want to do right now. The government must look for how to ensure that there's complete understanding. There is understanding of its objective and its purpose. For instance, if you look at what the government has tried to do concerning VAT, over a period of 5 years, VAT is going to move from 7.5% to 15%. Over a period of 5 years, it first moved to 10 to 12.5 and to 15. This is a gradualist approach. Everybody will complain, but there's a mechanism to ensure that you don't pay more than you ought to pay, because there's an input and output aspect of it. People don't understand that. All they hear is
the increment.
Now, so the government has to make efforts to educate and educate people on how this will translate to the real figures, how it affects you, how it affects me. But you see, when you just hear 7.5 to 15, you switch off.
Because you can't even fathom how it's going to go from 7.5 to 15.
Yes. I mean, despite all the problems that we're already bedeviled with. Now, Nigeria is faced with a myriad of problems, and there will be several solutions that will come together to whip us to line and shape the future, shape what to expect in future. Now, if you liken Nigeria to a sick person who is meant to go through surgery, once there's a wrong diagnosis, then your solutions will be wrong.
Right.
So it is very important at this stage to ensure that the problems are correctly diagnosed. So I don't have anything against, NEC and the Northern Governors Forum saying, let's take a look at this again. There's a procedure for enacting laws. That procedure can be looked at and enriched. The draft bill can be taken a look at again. Everything can be synchronized in such a way that it gives the populace some level of assurance that what we are about to take on makes us see the light at the end of the tunnel.
And not take us back to...
to where we were coming from. And the beauty of it is that leadership is about taking people from where they think they want to be to where they ought to be.
Okay.
So where they ought to be may not be immediately
sane,
right?
Which
discerned.
Which at the moment is where we are.
A lot of people are not discern. They don't want to discern anything again because the hardship is just too much, and they don't want to. They just want immediate solution, and it's not going to come.
Right. Mr. Badijo, part of what this bill stipulates is that there will be the creation of the Nigeria Revenue Service to replace the Federal Inland Revenue Service, and introduce mechanisms like tax tribunals, and of course a tax ombudsman to improve fairness and accountability in tax matters. For you, is it about the nomenclature here, or is it about what should be done if we do have a Nigerian Revenue Service which will harmonize all tax collection agencies in Nigeria?
Now it's just about nomenclature. We have Nigerian Service, what did you call it?
Tax
Commission.
Tax Service, what's it called? Nigeria Revenue Service.
Yes.
To replace the Federal Inland Revenue Service.
What is important here is, what are the functions of the Nigerian Tax Service Administration? It is what we have talked about. The Nigerian Tax Reform Committee is empaneled to make sure that we streamline our collection, we block loopholes, we make tax administration to be easier than it used to be, so that people that are willing to comply can comply without hassles.
Right.
That's the same thing. So it's just a form of changing nomenclature.
Right.
And you need to give the tax administration the bite that is needed to achieve the desired results. If the objective is to raise our tax GDP ratio, then you must put in place technology, you must put in place infrastructure, you must train the people to be able to administer these tax laws, you must train the people to be able to explain, to be able to, they have to be friendly to carry taxpayers along, they have to be knowledgeable, and there must be the IT infrastructure that can help. You must be able to block all loopholes, which hitherto existed, that is making government lose revenue, because you can't be overtaxing the same set of people. How do you drag a lot of other people that are hitherto not complying into the tax net?
Because exactly what you've just raised, and then we still have issues around government saying there's so many people that are not in the tax net, so many people that are not paying, except of course those whom you deduct from source from, and all of that. So use of technology here is also going to be very paramount. Are you positive that if this is done appropriately, then all of those loopholes may surely be blocked?
I'm positive, and that will not work in isolation. There has to be sensitization. And then, what is the function of government? You are paying so much taxes, and you're not seeing anything in return. This comes in the way of war, in the way of business, really. I want to pay my taxes, but there's a negative perception of government and revenues. There's a negative perception that government does not utilize these resources well. And that has to be worked on. It has to be worked on. You have to give the people that are paying these taxes enough reasons, value for their tax. You have to give them enough reasons to warm up to paying these taxes because they know that there's something in return. The social contract must be respected. If you don't do that, you are going to be wasting a lot of energy, wasting a lot of time, convincing people that either should have been willing to pay these taxes, but they're reluctant because they're not getting any results.
Okay. When you look at this proposed reform bill, where VAT is collected becomes crucial, as the amount of money collected potentially favor a particular region where consumption is very, very high. And these are some of the issues raised by the Northern Governors Forum. How do you think we can address this at the end of the day so that no particular region or part of the country will feel shortchanged? Or is an avenue or opportunity for these governors to be creative?
Thank you very much. This administration is trying to be creative. This administration is trying to do things differently. You cannot keep doing the same thing the same way and expect different results. Some principles of fiscal federalism is beginning to creep into our national consciousness. To that extent, there must be some level of resistance until everybody is able to decipher what is in this for me. And that's the critical stage that we are in. If I don't know how this benefits me, I'm likely to kick against it. Something that is ordinarily in my best interest, I may be kicking against it because I don't understand it. So the government needs to ensure that the process of educating ourselves, the process of making us see the tangible benefits is put in place and constantly oiled to ensure that there can be harmony. If we lack understanding, well, then we don't know where you're headed. We can't follow you.
But Mr. Taiwo Oyedele addressed members of NEC last week, yet they opposed, are saying that there will still be need for them to go and consult them more.
When there's a lot of skepticism about some policy directions, there's a difference between Mr. Taiwo Oyedele addressed. You sat down, watched, did you hear? Did you comprehend? So
did you understand?
Did you understand what Mr. Taiwo Oyedele was talking about? So there has to be some background, moves to get the stakeholders
to buy
into this new policy direction. If I don't buy into it, I can never understand it.
Right.
The implementations will look hazy. How do I carry my people along when I have not been carried along? So there is a process that ensures that at least the majority of populace can buy into what the government is trying to do. Like I said, this government is employing a gradualist approach because to do otherwise is to just kill everybody. People are already dying, people are already making noise, but these reforms must continue.
Right. Do you know that there are times that because you do not want a policy to work, you deliberately stop? Can this also be employed by, the stakeholders here, just thinking that if does not scale through, then perhaps government could have a rethink on this tax reform bill and then maybe throw it away, which Mr. President in any ways has said, go back to the National Assembly if you have issues with this and then go and hold public hearings. And so that way, everybody can have better understanding of what this is all about. So where does the onus fall now? On the National Assembly or on the presidency to cascade further at ensuring that there is enough buying into this bill?
Thank you very much. You have said it all. The president has given a directive. The National Assembly is empowered to enact laws.
Right.
You have issues with the laws, go back, don't throw it away. Go back to the National Assembly, air your views, bring up your issues, let the Tax Reform Committee
take that back,
and then the National Assembly will take a look at the procedures, the merits, and then give us the extant laws. But to say, throw it overboard, is not something that will be in the best interest of the country, because we're looking for a way out of our predicament.
Okay.
So if we're looking for a way out, and you say you've thrown it out, so what happens? So what do you back to square one? No movement, or motion, no movement. Nobody will tolerate that.
Right.
We have to go back to the drawing board and then make sure we get it right.
Okay. There was a particular issue I raised the other time about where VAT is collected and where consumption is quite high. So for those areas that are non-productive, what do you think will be their perception about this bill?
Now, I will not...
Because many people are already referring to Lagos, envying Lagos already, that this particular bill is going to favor Lagos.
What I'm going to say to you is that you can begin to see the element of trying to restructure the way we think and the way we put policies in place. Some elements of fiscal federalism is beginning to creep into our national consciousness, which will be positive. If you look at the population of Lagos, which of the states has that kind of population?
Yeah.
Which of the states carries the kind of responsibilities that comes with having that size of people?
Right.
And then look at the amount of VAT generated in that same. So there has to be some thinking about how to ensure that you are
Fair to Lagos.
you are fair. There's some level of equity. There's some level of making sure that resources are allocated to where they are needed the most. So that you address some imbalances.
Right.
If they are not addressed, they'll begin to rear their ugly heads. You'll keep shouting that things are not right in certain areas, but you're not doing anything about them.
Okay.
So you must identify imbalances. You must identify policies that are not working in the best interest of the nation. Some are bound to feel aggrieved.
Right.
Those things must be addressed. They must be shown why it can no longer be the way it used to be. So it's a whole gamut of, like government most times is faced with a trilemma. Not
even a dilemma.
I mean, for whatever you want to do, you must make sure, okay, there are political considerations, there are economic considerations, there are social implications, political implications. So when you have three things fighting for alignment,
right.
what do? But you must make sure that two of them, most of the time, are satisfied.
Okay.
So the one that is
Third
left,
one.
you must also put in place strategies to address
The third.
what could be the political implications and what will people think? How do we ameliorate it? What are the things we need to do to make sure that the political considerations are given less attention, or if it's going to be social? So it's something that the government needs to address.
Okay.
It's fine to all the time. You won't have a policy that will satisfy 100% of the
Right.
So how do you do it in such a way that you can achieve your results? Remember, if we define leadership as taking people to where they ought to be, not where they think
They should be.
they should be. Our problem, most Nigerians don't tap into this definition.
Yeah, it has to be what they want.
It has to be what you want.
Okay.
And what you want could be to the detriment of all other parts of the country.
Part of what this bill also stipulates is that there should be the creation of setting up of tribunals so that it will allow taxpayers to voice their grievances and ensure a fair tax resolution process. At the moment, do we have that in place where you can actually take your case to if you feel you're taxed unjustly, or if you feel that you're going through double taxation? If that is not the case at the moment, do you see this as a welcome development if this bill goes through?
Thank you very much. There are tax tribunals in 6 geopolitical zones.
Okay.
They are existing. Whether they are efficient
It's
is
another case.
The problem with tax administration in Nigeria is that a lot of people, they don't comply with the tax laws. And when they are dragged left, right, and center, there's a procedure. Before you get to the tax tribunal, there's a very long procedure which gives you opportunity to air your views,
Okay.
state your position, so that the tax authorities can also look at it. But most taxpayers don't take these steps. They are recalcitrant. And at the end of the day, by the time they end up at the tax tribunal, the Federal Inland Revenue will have concluded its case and established it. So the people will think that they are not getting justice.
Right.
But that is not the case. The case is that people don't even want to comply with these tax laws.
At all.
And the cost of non-compliance is about 10 times the cost of compliance. If you read the tax laws and you are ready to comply, is is the cheapest thing to do. If the tax law says pay VAT to government, charge VAT, and pay everyone. Once you do that, you are collecting money on behalf of government and you are remitting it to government. And then somebody says, I can't charge VAT. My business is not competitive. It is not written in the tax laws that once your business is not competitive,
That you should not collect
you should not collect VAT. So you think that is a defense? It is not a defense. You're already running foul of the law. And then you are fighting that kind of battle. It can't work. We must seek to understand the tax laws and apply them until they are repealed, until they are changed. They remain relevant. They remain. So if the education is, this is the law, and comply, maybe compliance will be easy. Compliance will be more. And there has been tax tribunals. There will continue to be tax tribunals. I think the problem is getting taxpayers to understand that there are procedures, there are tax laws, and the cheapest thing you can do is to comply. Because if you don't, the penalties, the interest is like 10 times the cost of non-compliance. The cost of non-compliance is like 10 times the cost of compliance.
10 times.
Yes.
Okay, I was sharing my thoughts with a particular friend on this particular tax reform bill, and he cited an instance like we have a port in Lagos, and somebody imports a car, and he paid his duties to the Lagos state government, and of course, he's not a resident of Lagos; he lives in Kogi State. Meanwhile, Lagos state already collected VAT, but the product will be consumed in Kogi State. How do we address that controversy?
That is part of what this reform bill is trying to address. Those are very technical issues that are being streamlined and are being considered. Where is Star Lager, Heineken, where are they manufactured? Where are they consumed? So what part of the country receives the larger share of these products? So when you are manufacturing Coke here next to your station and it's taken to the east, it's taken up north. So do you think it is where these bottles of Coke are manufactured that will take the larger share of the VAT or where it is consumed?
The consumption point.
So what happens to where it is produced, where you have a lot of maybe environmental degradation because of the machines they run, staff, overheads, So there's this tax reform
and the pressure on infrastructure.
So these tax reform laws will attempt to streamline
all of those.
So is that the kind of thing you want to throw away? That is not beneficial. So we need to take it easy and allow these tax reforms be reviewed. Make sure it's in the best interest of all of us.
Our government should do more of education so that people can understand.
They should go back and review and educate on each facet of the reform and how it affects us, how we benefit, what are we going to lose, what are we going to gain, what is the long-term view. But like I said, it's very difficult to get people to think long-term anymore. It's very difficult because the prevalent issues today, they are crippling, mind-boggling.
I like the fact that you created that picture on the fact that if you do not know, well, ignorance is not even, under the law, it is not an excuse. And so part of what this law also intends to do is to, especially for the small and medium enterprises, the SMEs, is also to simplify the payment of their taxes and also make them understand better the issues surrounding taxation and all of these. And so if you look at something Mr. President also said was to make the bigger companies pay for the smaller companies or for the generality of Nigerians. And so the small business owners, what are the basics that they must understand when it comes to filing of taxes?
Thank you very much. Like I just said, nobody wants to pay taxes. Small business owners are, some of the time they think they are immune. They think they are immune. I mean, they think with the volume of business that they do, and the government is trying to make it very easy for them now by granting some exemptions, turnover exemptions, so that they can have some respite, they can have some relief, they can have some so that they
breathing
can
space.
breathing space to grow their business. For a small business owner, when they keep good records, they're able to correctly determine their tax exposures. If you don't keep good records and you submit records, because what we do today is called self-assessment. You prepared some documentations on your own and you take it to the tax authorities that these are my returns, prepared by the small business owner. And the tax authority is punching hole in what you have submitted. You know, there will be a problem.
There will be.
You may think you are not liable to taxes, and the Federal Inland Revenue says you are liable because of the records you brought.
You've
so
brought.
the small business owners that does not give attention, that does not pay adequate attention to record keeping,
Right.
is going to suffer a lot of losses.
Okay.
You may be paying taxes that you are not meant to pay
Right.
because of the way you have kept your records and the way you've presented it. So the small business owners must be careful about keeping records,
Right. Bookkeeping is very important.
accounting, and ensuring that whatever you have put in your self-assessment records can be defended. A lot of small business owners don't keep records.
Yeah.
They buy fuel and they don't keep the records. And then you show in your profit or loss account that you spent 1 million naira on fuel.
And
the
yet you
taxman
don't have
says,
record for that.
where are the records? You just go to the filling station, you buy gas, you pay with your POS or you pay cash.
And you don't keep the
You don't
receipts.
keep the receipts. Some say, what do they want to do with it? But when the taxman sees some amount of money and says justify, and you cannot justify, guy says,
There's
I'm
a
writing
problem.
it back to your profit.
Wow.
And then a disagreement will ensue. So the responsibility of keeping good records and presenting them in the manner prescribed lies with the business owners.
Right.
And the small business owners must, to take advantage of the incentives that government is trying to give.
They must ensure
do
they keep their
part.
books,
They
okay?
must keep their books.
Okay, some figures have also been projected by the Taiwo Odede Reform Committee set up by Mr. President as to what we are going to generate long term, which is about 44 trillion naira. Is it achievable or it's a tall dream?
I'll say to you that it's achievable. It's achievable, but the amount of work that will go into it, so that we don't have a false tax, so that we don't have, is what the government should. And I'm sure the government will have a roadmap for sensitization, for harnessing of the possibilities and opportunities. But things must be done in a manner that makes everybody willing to comply. And that's the task: education,
Right.
sensitization.
Because most times in this country, I'm sorry, we have good policies, but implementation is always our problem.
Sometimes the policies are also not good. I mean,
And so implementation becomes worse.
sometimes the policies are not well thought out.
Right.
They're not good. People are not carried along. No matter how good your policy is, if the stakeholders don't
Not
buy
buying
into it,
it.
that is where the failure
Right.
starts. So if you say policy is good, but stakeholders management is poor,
Poor.
Then there's a problem.
I don't know how to
Part of
situate
what the-
that.
Part of what the bill also stipulates is the introduction of a tax amnesty program. Can you please walk us through what that is all about?
It's already happening.
Okay.
It's already happening in the sense that occasionally the tax authorities will give you a leeway
Okay.
and say, if you're able to pay your taxes between this date and this date, the penalties will not accrue.
Okay.
On existing liabilities from tax audit, if you're able to pay, you will be saved the hassles of paying penalties. So this kind of amnesty comes into play to encourage people
To pay early.
to pay early.
Okay.
And then the benefit is that you are not getting surcharged for the period that you have
missed.
defaulted.
Okay.
What that does is it improves government revenue. Government will lose some money, but it will improve the revenue. And the government is able to do what they want to do with the money. Sometimes people pay in advance. Now you can take a look at paying in advance and earning some level of interest. When you earn some level of interest, you are paying your taxes in advance and you are earning. I doubt if Nigerians will be used to paying taxes in advance. And this tax reform committee has also recommended a situation where people can actually collect tax refunds if they've overpaid or there are issues that has led to taxes that are supposed to be refunded to taxpayers. This will create some level of confidence in the system, because it's all about confidence building. You have to build people's confidence to a level that they will see that, oh, once the government is fulfilling its own side of the deal, then I will fulfill my own side of the deal. So we need to have a balance. So the amnesty is to make people comply,
Okay.
improve government's revenue in the short term. And it's not permanent.
Okay.
It's not permanent. So what you lose for some period, you can gain again in some period. And then you allow people to see that you are not punitive. You are just encouraging compliance.
Right.
I think there is a semblance of what you just mentioned in Lagos. Each year when people want to pay their land use charge, there is always this window of payment wherein
you
you
get
pay
a
within a
15%
rebate.
discount.
That is it. That is it. So if it is well managed, it will improve people's perception. And once the perception improves, compliance.
Okay, for those whose perception are still not good about this reform bill, especially the northern part of the country, how can they see the positive in this bill to their own advantage?
I don't want to narrow it to the northern part of this country. A lot of people don't feel good about anything taxation
Because they don't want to part with their money.
because right now we're in a dire strait.
Right.
Everyone is shouting, crying. The private sector is hit. Multinationals, the profit is going down. Some are shutting down. Some are getting out of the country. People are impoverished. Poverty level is high. So, but the government cannot ignore its responsibility and say, let's put a hold on tax. Yet, our tax GDP ratio is one of the lowest.
Lowest.
So the government is doing so many other things in so many other areas, but we can't see the results. We can't see the results immediately. So this aspect of it, the taxation aspect, that we have to look for how to improve our tax GDP ratio, is what this tax reform is trying to focus on.
Right. Right.
And the government must not lose focus in making sure that, because if you do all other things and leave this, there's still a hole that you have left. Don't forget that the government must all the time strive to make sure there's a handshake between monetary policies and fiscal policies. So ignore fiscal policies to your detriment.
Right.
Ignore, concentrate on money. The monetary policies does not seem to be working anyway. So you are not achieving any result with monetary policies. You are not achieving any result with fiscal policies. Then is the country going to be left to die or to continue to suffer debilitating situations? So there must be constant, engagement,
Okay.
sensitization, so that the people can understand more. Like I said, I'm not restricting it to any part of the country.
Yeah.
It's something that can generate
Nigerians
uproar
generally. Okay.
everywhere in the country.
Right.
The country is taken, and then you have some negativity in the air. Somebody wants to buy aeroplane, somebody wants to, you are going to be hearing all of this, and then the connection is to, they want to collect more taxes. How do you resolve that?
Okay.
So it's all over the place.
As we wrap up this conversation today, like we said, Mr. President has said, well, this bill is before the National Assembly. Let's see how we can, through the public hearings, plug all the loopholes that you may have with the bill. So what are your suggestions, or what would you wish for the National Assembly to concentrate on now that the bill is before them?
Thank you very much. I think if the bill has been taken back to the National Assembly should get a lot of input from warring factions. If you have something against it, put it in the writing. They receive memoranda from all the people that are speaking against it. Cast their net wide open to receive a lot of inputs and address, and then make sure the Tax Reform Committee distills all this and provide explanation, provide, understanding. That's the only way out.
Okay.
Like I said, you don't throw away the baby
With the
bathwater, but you need inputs.
Okay.
You need inputs. Receive consult far and wide.
And why?
And
So it will be seen that you have done a good job.
yes, and be transparent about it.
Okay.
And don't be flippant about it. You can't be cracking jokes with matters that concerns the welfare,
It has
the
to be,
well-being.
you have to devote every seriousness.
It has to be taken with seriousness
Okay.
it deserves.
All right. Thank you so much, Benga Badijo, Chartered Accountant and Tax Consultant, for finding time to be here on the program today. We appreciate your thoughts.
Thank you very much.
Well, that's the much we'll take care. And like our guest has said today, it's important for members of the National Assembly to take this with every seriousness and ensure that, you know, this is not joked with. Lives matter here, and it is a theme that concerns every region here in Nigeria. We do hope that at the end of the day, a sense of reasoning will prevail and it will end well. That's much we'll take on the conversation on this side. We'll take a quick break. When we return, the conversation continues.